When your wife stands in your kitchen, tears streaming down her face, telling you she's pregnant, and you know with absolute certainty that it's impossible, something breaks inside you. Not like shattered glass, like a dam. And what comes flooding out isn't grief or confusion. It's cold, crystalline rage. My name is Isaac Morrison, and I'm 36 years old. See, I'd gotten a vasectomy 3 years earlier. Never told Melissa. She'd been obsessed with having a baby, and I already had Tyler, my 13-year-old son from my first marriage. I wasn't bringing another kid into the world, so I made a choice. Got snipped, kept it quiet, had my sperm count verified 4 months before her announcement. 0. Completely sterile, which meant her miracle baby was proof she'd been fucking someone else. I didn't collapse. I gathered evidence, built a case. And when I was ready, I burned her world to ash. But let me start from the beginning. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. Saturday afternoon, October. I was under the hood of my truck in the garage, hands black with grease, replacing the air filter. The smell of motor oil and old metal reminded me of working on cars with my dad when I was Tyler's age. Those quiet weekends where we'd spend hours not talking, just fixing things. I heard footsteps behind me. Isaac, I turned. Melissa stood in the doorway, backlit by autumn sun. She had one hand behind her back, and this look on her face, nervous, excited, like she was holding something fragile. "Hey, babe," I said, wiping my hands on a rag. "What's up?" "I have something to tell you." Her voice trembled. "Something amazing." She brought her hand forward. 3 pregnancy tests, all showing positive. "We're having a baby," she whispered. Tears were already streaming down her face. "After all this time, we're finally pregnant." The wrench in my other hand suddenly felt heavy. My brain did the math in exactly 2 seconds. Vasectomy 3 years ago. Confirmed non-reversible. 0 sperm count checked 4 months ago at my annual physical. Absolutely, completely, 100% sterile. Which meant one thing. That baby wasn't mine. But my face showed nothing except surprised joy. I'd spent 15 years in corporate tech learning to mask every emotion during negotiations and performance reviews. This was just another performance. "That's incredible," I said, letting the wrench clatter onto my workbench. "Mel, wow. Are you sure?" 3 tests. She laughed through her tears. "All positive. I have a doctor's appointment scheduled for Friday to confirm, but Isaac, we're having a baby." I stepped forward and pulled her into my arms. She sobbed into my shoulder, her whole body shaking with emotion. I held her tight, running calculations. 6 weeks pregnant, probably. That would put conception around early September. When I was in Dallas for a week, 500 miles away. "How long have you known?" I asked, keeping my voice warm. "I took the first test this morning. Then I bought 2 more just to be absolutely sure." She pulled back to look at me, searching my face. "You're happy, right? I know we'd sort of stopped talking about it, but of course I'm happy." I cupped her face in my hands, careful not to smudge her with grease. "This is the best news." "We should celebrate. Let me clean up, and we'll go to Francesca's. Your favorite." Relief flooded her expression, like she'd been worried I wouldn't react well. "Interesting. Really? You don't have to." "I want to. You're carrying our baby. Let me spoil you a little." She kissed me, tasting like tears and coffee. "I love you so much, Isaac." "Love you too," I said automatically. An hour later, we were sitting at Francesca's Italian kitchen, that place with the red checkered tablecloths and the waiters who sang opera. Melissa ordered carbonara. I got lasagna I barely tasted. "So, when did you start suspecting?" I asked, twirling pasta around my fork. "You've seemed tired lately, but I figured it was just work stress." "Honestly?" She pushed food around her plate. "I thought maybe I was going through early menopause or something. I'm 34, but then my breasts hurt, and I was exhausted all the time, and Clara said I should just take a test to rule it out." "Clara knew before me?" "I told her last week. She's the one who convinced me to actually test instead of just wondering." Melissa reached across the table for my hand. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you I was worried. I didn't want to get your hopes up if it was nothing." "It's okay. I get it." I squeezed her fingers. "I'm just glad you had support." She smiled, relieved again. That night, I waited until she fell asleep. She'd been exhausted. Pregnancy exhaustion, she'd said. and was out by 9:30. I went downstairs, grabbed her phone from the charging station, our anniversary for the passcode. She'd never changed it. I started with her messages. Recent texts with Clara showed gaps, whole conversations deleted. But Melissa wasn't tech-savvy. She didn't know about cloud backup. I logged into her account from my laptop in the home office. The deleted messages loaded. My jaw clenched. September 3rd. Melissa to Clara. He's gone for the week. You're sure this is a good idea? Clara to Melissa. You've been miserable. You deserve to feel wanted. Just be smart. September 5th. Melissa to Clara. I feel terrible, but also, I haven't felt like this in years. Like, I'm actually alive. September 10th. Melissa to Clara. He's coming back tomorrow. I don't know how to face him. Clara to Melissa. You didn't do anything wrong. Isaac doesn't appreciate you. This other guy actually sees you. I sat back, read them again, then kept digging. Found a second Instagram account I didn't know existed. Fake name, private. 7 followers. Most were her girlfriends. One was V. Romero 87. I clicked through to his profile. Public, 29 years old. Personal trainer. Worked at Elite Fitness, the gym Melissa joined 4 months ago. I pulled up our credit card statements, started cross-referencing. Charges at restaurants on nights she said she was with Clara. A hotel charge in September, $67 on the 8th when I was in Dallas. Small cash withdrawals every week since July. 40 here, 60 there. I sat in the dark office, staring at the evidence on my screen. She'd been planning this, meeting him, lying to me. And now she was pregnant with his baby, trying to pass it off as mine. I closed the laptop, went back upstairs, climbed into bed beside her. Melissa murmured something in her sleep and curled against me, one hand resting on her belly. On the baby that wasn't mine, on the proof of her betrayal. I kissed her forehead gently. Sleep well, I whispered. Then I stared at the ceiling for the next 4 hours, building my strategy with cold, methodical precision. Friday afternoon, Melissa and I sat in Dr. Andrea Stewart's examination room. The walls were covered in baby photos and motivational posters about motherhood. Melissa gripped my hand, her palm sweaty. Dr. Stewart came in with a warm smile. Mid-40s, kind eyes, the type of doctor who actually listened. She pulled up the ultrasound images on her screen. Congratulations, Dr. Stewart said. You're measuring at 6 to 7 weeks. Healthy heartbeat. Everything looks perfect. Melissa started crying. Happy tears. I squeezed her hand and smiled. 6 to 7 weeks. I'd been in Dallas during that window. 500 miles away, closing a software contract while my wife was here getting pregnant with someone else's baby. This is incredible, I said, keeping my voice warm. We've been hoping for this for so long. Well, sometimes these things happen when you least expect them. Dr. Stewart handed Melissa tissues. I'll want to see you back in 4 weeks. Start taking prenatal vitamins if you haven't already. In the car afterward, Melissa glowed. Literally glowed. That pregnancy radiance people talk about. Can you believe it? She touched her stomach. Our baby. We're actually having a baby. It's amazing. I pulled out of the parking lot. You know, I was thinking, have you ever considered getting fertility testing done? Like, back when we were trying? Her body went rigid. What? Why would you ask that? Just curious. You know, statistically, when couples struggle to conceive, it's pretty common to check both partners. Make sure everything's working right on both sides. Well, clearly everything's working fine now. Her voice had an edge. Clearly. I glanced at her. I just meant, Isaac, can we not talk about this? I'm pregnant. That's what matters. Can we just be happy? Of course. You're right. I'm sorry. She relaxed slightly. It's okay. I'm just emotional. I let it drop. I'd made my point, planted the seed of doubt, if only in my own mind, that she knew exactly what she was doing. Saturday morning, I told Melissa I had to run some errands. She was heading to yoga class anyway, or that's what she said. I met Jason Moore at a coffee shop across town. He was waiting in a corner booth, laptop already open. Show me what you've got, Jason said. I pulled out my tablet, walked him through everything, the deleted messages, the credit card statements, the cash withdrawals, the Instagram account, Victor Romero's profile. Jason scrolled through it all, nodding. This is solid work. You could probably handle this yourself in court. I don't want solid. I want ironclad. I want photos, videos, timestamps. I want evidence so overwhelming that she can't deny it, can't spin it, Can't play victim. I can do that. Jason closed my tablet. These two being careful at all? Not remotely. She thinks I'm clueless. Good. Give me 2 weeks. Maybe less. I'll get you everything you need. I pulled out my checkbook. How much? 10,000 total. Half now, half when I deliver. I wrote the check for $5,000. Jason tucked it into his jacket. One more thing, I said. I want audio if possible. Conversations, admissions, anything that proves intent. I'll see what I can do. No promises. Recording laws are tricky. But I'll try. We shook hands. I left, feeling something I hadn't felt since this nightmare started. Control. Sunday night was family dinner at my parents' house. Mom made pot roast. Dad grilled vegetables out back. My sister Ella was there with her fiancé. And Tyler was there, my 13-year-old son from my first marriage, staying with me this week. So, Mom said, setting down mashed potatoes. Any news to share? Melissa lit up. Actually, yes. We're pregnant. The table erupted. Mom started crying immediately, rushing around to hug Melissa. Dad clapped me on the back so hard I coughed. Ella literally screamed and ran to squeeze Melissa. Tyler looked confused. Wait, you're having a baby? Like, an actual baby? That's right, buddy, I said, ruffling his hair. You're going to be a big brother. He thought about this. Cool. Can we name it something awesome? Like Maximus or Darth? Everyone laughed, even me, though it felt mechanical. We'll see, Melissa said, smiling at Tyler. Maybe you can help us make a list. I watched her hold my mother's hands across the table. Watched her cry while talking about due dates and nursery colors. Watched my family celebrate this perfect moment. And I felt nothing, not happiness, not even anger anymore, just cold, clear focus. This lie was going to end, soon, and when it did, everyone in this room would know exactly what Melissa had done. Late that night, I sat in my home office. The house was dark and quiet. Melissa was asleep upstairs. Tyler was in his room playing video games with headphones on. I pulled up all the evidence on my computer, reviewed every message, every charge, every piece of the puzzle. In 2 weeks, Jason would hand me the final pieces, photos, videos, proof, and then the real work would begin. 2 weeks crawled by, I went to work, came home, kissed Melissa, asked about her day, acted like the devoted husband preparing for fatherhood. Every second felt like playing a role in a play I hadn't auditioned for. Tuesday afternoon, I was reviewing code at my desk when my cell rang. Jason Moore. I've got everything you need, he said. When can you come by? I checked my watch. 3:15. Give me an hour. I told my team I had a client meeting and left early. Told Melissa via text I had a late work thing. She responded with a heart emoji and said she'd order takeout. Jason's office was above a tax preparation service in a strip mall across town. The stairs creaked. The hallway smelled like old carpet and coffee. He was waiting with his laptop open. Before I show you this, Jason said, I need to confirm. You want to see everything? Some clients prefer just the summary. Everything, I said. He opened the first file. Photos. Melissa and Victor at a restaurant I didn't recognize. At a park. In the gym parking lot with his arm around her waist. One photo showed them kissing, her hands on his chest, his hand on the small of her back. I stared at it. My wife. Another man. No question what was happening. These are from the past week, Jason explained. But there's more. He clicked to video footage. Grainy but clear. Melissa entering a hotel, Victor right behind her. The timestamp read Thursday 3:07 p.m. That's last Thursday, I said quietly. She told you she was shopping for work clothes according to the phone records you gave me. I nodded, watched the video. They disappeared inside. Jason fast-forwarded. They came out at 5:24, 2 hours and 17 minutes. My jaw clenched. Keep going. More photos, more videos. A pattern so obvious it would have been insulting if it weren't so devastating. Meetings during my work hours. During business trips. Always the same locations. His car, that hotel, the park near the gym. Then Jason showed me a photo that made my blood freeze. Clara Hendrickson, standing in a parking lot, arms crossed, watching the entrance like a sentry. The timestamp showed it was taken while Melissa and Victor were in his car. The friend's actively helping, Jason said. She's running interference, playing lookout. Clara, I said. My voice sounded distant. Gets better, Jason said. Or worse, depending on how you look at it. He pulled up an audio file. I tailed Victor to a bar Friday night. He met up with some friends. This is from that conversation. He pressed play. Static, then voices. Background noise. Then Victor's voice, clear enough. Man, this married chick I'm seeing, she's loaded. Husband makes bank. She says, once the baby's here, she's divorcing him and I'll be set. Child support alone will be like winning the lottery. Laughter from his friends. You knocked her up? Victor's voice again. Hell yeah, I did. She wanted a kid so bad, and her husband wasn't giving it to her. I'm doing them both a favor. He gets to be a dad, I get paid, everybody wins. More laughter. Dumbass has no idea. Thinks it's his miracle baby. She's playing him perfectly. The recording continued, but I stopped hearing it. My hands were flat on the desk, steady. My breathing was even. Dumbass. Miracle baby, playing him perfectly. You okay? Jason asked. I'm perfect, I said. My voice was ice. Send me everything, every file, every recording, every piece of documentation. Jason slid a thumb drive across the desk. Already loaded. Photos, videos, timestamps, location data, the audio files. Everything you need for court. I pulled out my checkbook. Wrote him a check for $5,000. If you need to testify, you available? Absolutely. I'll write up a full report too. Professional summary of surveillance findings. I pocketed the thumb drive and stood. Mr. Morrison, Jason said. For what it's worth? I've done this work for 15 years. I've seen a lot of cheaters. This one? He shook his head. The calculation here. The planning. That's cold. Yeah, I said. It is. I walked to my car, sat in the dark parking lot with the engine off, gripped the steering wheel, and I let myself feel it. The rage, the betrayal, the humiliation, the sheer audacity of what she'd done, what they'd planned together, taking my money, my home, my life, and calling me a dumbass while doing it. I sat there for 10 minutes, let it wash over me, let it burn. Then I channeled it, turned that fire into something cold and sharp and useful. Clarity. I knew exactly what needed to happen next. I drove home. Melissa was on the couch watching some reality show, one hand resting on her belly like always. Hey babe, she said, smiling. How was your meeting? Productive, I said. Very productive. I sat beside her. Hey, I was thinking. We should have a dinner party. Celebrate the baby properly. Invite some friends. Her smile faltered. Oh, like who? Clara and Nick. Maybe some people from your work. A few of my friends. Make it special. Isaac, that's a lot of people. I'll handle everything, I said firmly. You just relax. You're carrying our child. Let me take care of you. She melted. You're so sweet. Thank you. Anything for you, Mel? I kissed her forehead. How about Saturday? This Saturday? Why not? Strike while the iron's hot. She hesitated, then nodded. Okay, if you're sure. I'm sure. I went upstairs to the bedroom, closed the door, pulled out my phone, started making calls. Near midnight, I stood at the window looking out at our quiet street. The thumb drive was in my pocket. My phone was in my hand. The guest list was finalized. Clara and Nick Hendrickson, Melissa's co-worker and her husband, and one more guest, someone Melissa wouldn't recognize until it was too late. I smiled. Cold. Controlled. Saturday was going to change everything. Saturday evening, 6:30. I was in the kitchen checking the roast when Melissa appeared in the doorway. Isaac, are you sure 8 people isn't too many? Her hands twisted together. That's a lot of guests. It's perfect, I said, not looking up from the potatoes. We're celebrating a big moment. We should share it with people who matter. I just think maybe something smaller. Mel. I turned to face her, smiled. Everything's going to be perfect. Trust me. She nodded, still anxious. Okay, if you're sure. I was sure. The dining room table was set for 8. I'd spent the afternoon making sure every detail was right. Good china, cloth napkins, candles. The kind of dinner party that said this matters. Guests arrived at 7. Clara came first, all fake warmth and a bottle of wine she'd probably picked up at the grocery store on the way over. Congratulations, you two. I'm so excited for you. Nick followed behind her, loud as always. Isaac, good to see you, man. Heard about the baby news. That's fantastic. Darla and Andy showed up next, Melissa's co-worker and her husband. Sweet people, genuinely excited. We're so happy for you both, Darla said, hugging Melissa. Brody arrived last. Practiced handshakes, warm smile. "Isaac, good to see you. Been too long." "Brody and I went to college together," I told Melissa. "Thought it'd be nice to catch up." She smiled, relieved that I hadn't invited anyone too unexpected. I'd briefed Brody 2 days ago, showed him everything. The man had practically drooled over how clean this case was. Dinner started with small talk, work stories, weekend plans, safe topics while I poured wine, made sure everyone's glass stayed full. Everyone except Melissa, obviously. She sipped water, one hand resting on her belly. I needed them relaxed, comfortable, guards down. By dessert, the table was laughing. Nick was telling some story about a client. Darla was sharing office gossip. Clara was playing the perfect best friend. I stood, raised my glass. "I want to make a toast." Everyone lifted their glasses. "To my beautiful wife, Melissa," I said, voice warm, "who's given me the most incredible news. We're having a baby." "Hear, hear," Nick called out. "It's truly a miracle," I continued, "especially considering I had a vasectomy 3 years ago." Silence. Complete. Total. Silence. Melissa's face went white. "I'm sorry," Clara said carefully. "What did you just say?" "A vasectomy." I pulled out my phone, showed the screen. "Got it done March of 3 years ago. Confirmed non-reversible. 0 sperm count. Checked annually. Most recently 4 months ago." I let that sink in, watched it register on their faces. So you can imagine my surprise when Melissa announced her pregnancy. "Isaac," Melissa started. Her voice shook. "Let me finish." My tone went hard, because I wanted to understand this miracle. So I did some investigating. I pulled out my tablet, opened the first photo, found deleted messages between you and Clara, pulled our credit card statements, discovered charges at restaurants and hotels during times you claimed to be elsewhere. Clara's face drained of color. Nick was staring at his wife. Then I hired a private investigator. I displayed the photo. Melissa and Victor at a restaurant, clear as day. "This is my wife with Victor Romero, personal trainer at Elite Fitness, taken 2 weeks ago." I swiped through more photos. The park, the kiss in the parking lot. Melissa was crying. "Please stop, please." "Then there's this video." I played the hotel footage, timestamp visible. Melissa and Victor entering together. 2 hours and 17 minutes, I said flatly. Darla gasped. Andy sat frozen. "But the best part?" I played the audio. Victor's voice filled the room. "This married chick I'm seeing, she's loaded. Husband makes bank. Once the baby's here, she's divorcing him and I'll be set. Child support alone will be like winning the lottery." "You knocked her up?" "Hell yeah, I did. She wanted a kid so bad, and her husband wasn't giving it to her. I'm doing them both a favor. He gets to be a dad, I get paid, everybody wins. Dumbass has no idea. Thinks it's his miracle baby. She's playing him perfectly." "Oh my God," Nick whispered. He turned to Clara. "You knew about this?" Clara was crying now. "Nick, I can explain." "You helped her," Nick said. His voice was rising. "You helped her cheat on him." "I was being a good friend." "A good friend?" I laughed, cold. "You were helping my wife commit paternity fraud." Brody stood, pulled out a business card. "Brody Schultz, family law attorney." Paternity fraud carries civil penalties including restitution, emotional distress damages, and potential criminal charges when financial fraud can be proven. He looked at Melissa, which, given the documented intent to deceive for financial gain, it's an easy case. Melissa was sobbing. "Isaac, please, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I was confused and lonely and—" "Confused," I cut her off. "You weren't confused when you were screwing him in a hotel. You weren't confused when you planned to pass off his baby as mine. You weren't confused when you decided to divorce me and collect child support for a kid that isn't mine. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that." I slammed my hand on the table. "You want to know what's happening now? I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. Civil suit against you for fraud and emotional distress. Alienation of affection lawsuit against Victor. And I'm keeping this house, my retirement accounts, my stocks, everything. You'll get whatever the judge thinks is fair after he hears what you did." "You can't do this," Melissa whispered. "I already did. Brody filed preliminary paperwork Friday." Melissa stared at me. Broken. "Get out of my house," I said. Voice ice. "Pack a bag. Stay somewhere else tonight. The only thing I want from you now is your signature on divorce papers." She stood on shaking legs, stumbled toward the door. Clara followed, avoiding Nick's eyes. The others filtered out. Darla was crying. Andy just nodded at me. Nick lingered. I had no idea. I know, that's why I invited you. He left. Brody stayed behind. That was brutal. That was justice. Agreed. This'll be the easiest divorce I've ever handled. After he left, I sat alone in the dining room. Plates still scattered, wine glasses half empty, candles burning low. I looked at my reflection in the dark window, and I felt peace. Monday morning, Melissa got served at her mother's house. I wasn't there, obviously, but I heard about it. Gleisel Garcia answered the door expecting a delivery, got divorce papers instead. Melissa apparently broke down sobbing right there in the doorway while some process server awkwardly waited for her signature. By noon, my phone was blowing up. Melissa's aunt, her cousin, some uncle I'd met twice, all of them calling, texting, leaving voicemails about how cruel I was being, how I needed to think about the baby, how families work through these things. I ignored every single one. You know what's funny? Not one of them asked if the accusations were true. Not one of them said, "Hey Isaac, did Melissa really cheat?" They just assumed I should forgive her because that's what you're supposed to do. Screw that. Brody had been busy over the weekend. While I was cleaning up dinner plates and processing what I'd just done, he was filing paperwork. 3 separate legal actions. We met Monday afternoon at his office to review everything. Divorce proceedings first, Brody said, sliding a folder across his desk. Petition for full asset protection based on adultery. California's a no-fault state, but infidelity absolutely matters when determining fair division of property. Good. Second, civil suit against Melissa for fraud and emotional distress. We're documenting every lie, every instance of deception, the planned paternity fraud, building a case for damages beyond just the divorce. And the third, alienation of affection lawsuit against Victor Romero. I leaned forward. I thought California didn't allow those. Traditional alienation suits, no. But emotional distress and intentional interference with marriage? Absolutely applicable. We're going after his personal assets directly. How much can we get? Brody smiled. Depends on what he has. But the threat alone will make his life hell. Legal fees, depositions, public record of what he did. Even if he's broke, the process will cost him. I want him to understand, I said quietly, what it costs to sleep with someone's wife. He will. Tuesday, Melissa's attorney reached out. Some kid named Jed Wilson, fresh-faced, probably 2 years out of law school. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. He wanted to schedule a settlement meeting. Discuss terms amicably. Brody laughed when he told me. Amicably. Like she didn't commit fraud. When? Wednesday afternoon. 2 o'clock. You want to be there? Absolutely. Wednesday. Brody's conference room. Jed walked in with Melissa trailing behind. She looked terrible. Eyes puffy, no makeup, wearing sweatpants like she'd given up. Good. Thank you for meeting, Jed started. Professional. Practiced. My client is willing to agree to a no-fault divorce, standard asset division, and given the circumstances of the pregnancy— Stop, Brody interrupted. Jed blinked. Excuse me? Your client committed adultery, documented extensively. She attempted paternity fraud, conspired to defraud my client of child support payments. There will be no standard asset division. Mr. Schultz, that's not how— Actually, Brody slid a thick folder across the table. That's exactly how it works when one party commits fraud. Jed opened the folder. I watched his face fall as he flipped through the contents. Photos, videos, financial records, text messages. We have a recorded confession, Brody continued, from the biological father discussing his plan to exploit child support payments. Your client actively participated in this scheme. Jed looked at Melissa. She was staring at the table. So, here's what happens, Brody said. Your client gets nothing. No house, no retirement accounts, no stocks, no property. She gets her personal belongings, her car, and whatever money was in her personal account before the marriage. That's it. This is punitive. This is justice. My client invested 8 years and significant financial resources into this marriage under false pretenses. He's entitled to restitution. Melissa finally spoke, voice shaking. Isaac, please, be reasonable. I looked at her, really looked at her. I'm being perfectly reasonable, I said. Cold, flat. You tried to trap me with another man's baby, Planned to take half of everything I built. Now you get nothing. That's what reasonable looks like. Isaac, sign the papers or don't. I don't care. But those are the terms. Tears streamed down her face. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Can't we just— No. The meeting ended 10 minutes later. No agreement. Jed looked shell-shocked. Melissa looked destroyed. I felt nothing. Brody and I walked out to the parking lot afterward. They'll be back, he said, loosening his tie. Once they realize no judge will side with her. How long? 2 weeks, maybe 3. Jed's going to tell her she has no case. She'll panic. Then she'll sign. I nodded, unlocked my car. Isaac, Brody said, you're handling this well. A lot of guys would be falling apart. I fell apart Saturday night, I said. In private. Now I'm just making sure she pays for what she did. Good man. I drove home thinking about the next phase. The legal war was just beginning. But I'd already won. Thursday evening, 2 weeks after the settlement meeting disaster. I met Nick at a sports bar downtown, the kind with too many TVs and decent wings. He was already there when I arrived, halfway through a beer. Hey, he said, standing to shake my hand. Thanks for meeting. Of course. We ordered another round, made small talk about work for maybe 5 minutes before Nick got to it. I filed, he said. Divorce papers. Served Clara Monday. Good. I did some digging after your dinner party. Went through her phone, her emails, everything. He took a long drink. She'd been covering for Melissa for months, lying to me, canceling plans so Melissa could meet up with that trainer, providing alibis. I nodded. I'd suspected as much. Every time I backed up one of Clara's stories to you, Nick continued, every time I said, yeah, the girls had their night out or whatever, I was helping them lie. I feel like shit about it, man. You didn't know, I said simply. Still, Nick, you're not responsible for what your wife chose to do, same as I'm not responsible for what mine did. He exhaled slowly. Clara's trying to spin this now, painting Melissa as the victim, saying you're being cruel and vindictive. I almost laughed. Cruel and vindictive. That's what she told her mother. Said Melissa made a mistake and you're destroying her life over it. Melissa destroyed her own life, I said. I'm just making sure she pays for it. Exactly, Nick's voice hardened. Which is why I'm taking everything. The house, my business, our savings. All of it. Clara can start over with nothing, just like she tried to help Melissa do to you. We clinked glasses. How's Tyler handling everything? Nick asked. He's with his mom this week. Rosalie's been good about keeping him out of the drama. That's good. The conversation shifted to safer topics. Work, sports, anything but our imploding marriages. But it felt right, sitting there with someone who understood. Someone else who'd been betrayed by the person they trusted most. The fallout kept spreading. Victor got served with the alienation of affection lawsuit at Elite Fitness, in front of clients. I'd called his boss beforehand. Guy named Tyrese Hamilton. Explained the situation professionally, that Victor had been sleeping with a married client, gotten her pregnant, and was now facing legal action. Appreciate the heads up, Tyrese said when he called me back. Can't have someone on staff who's sleeping with married clients. Bad for business. Understood. I fired him on the spot. Thank you. Victor didn't take it well. He started calling me. Left 3 voicemails, each angrier than the last. The third one was a threat. You think you're tough hiding behind lawyers? Come talk to me like a man. I'll come to your house and we'll handle this. I called Brody immediately. Can I press charges? For what, the threat? Possibly. But he's already been served with a restraining order as part of the civil suit. If he shows up at your house, call the police and he'll be arrested. Victor never showed up. Coward. Wednesday afternoon, Melissa's mother called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Isaac, Gleisel said, voice trembling. Please, you have to stop this. Stop what? You're destroying her life. She made a mistake. People make mistakes. I kept my voice flat. Mistakes are forgetting to buy milk, Gleisel. Calculated affairs with planned paternity fraud aren't mistakes. They're crimes. She's your wife. She was my wife. Now she's just someone who tried to trap me with another man's baby. You're being cruel. I'm being just, I corrected. She destroyed her own life. I'm simply making sure she pays for it. Gleisel sobbed and hung up. That same week, Melissa lost her job. Darla told me later what happened. She'd gone to HR after the dinner party, explained the situation. The company decided that an employee involved in fraud, Even personal fraud represented too much of a liability. Melissa called me Thursday night. Unknown number. "You turned everyone against me," she sobbed. "Everyone." "I didn't turn anyone against you, Melissa. I told the truth. You turned everyone against yourself by lying. I'm pregnant and unemployed. Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do?" "That's not my problem." "Isaac, maybe Victor can help," I said coldly. "It's his baby, after all." She hung up. Friday evening, I sat in my home office reviewing financial spreadsheets for a project at work. My phone sat on the desk beside me, silent. No more calls from Melissa's family, no more angry voicemails from Victor, no more desperate pleas, just quiet. Peaceful, productive quiet. I leaned back in my chair and looked around the office. My house, my space, my life. Everything Melissa had tried to take was still mine, and everything she'd built was crumbling. Justice looked a lot like spreadsheets and silence. 3 weeks after Melissa lost her job, Rosalie texted me, "Can we meet for coffee? Just to talk." I stared at the message for a minute. My ex-wife. The woman I'd been married to when I was young and stupid. We'd divorced 5 years ago, amicably, thankfully, but we hadn't exactly stayed close. "Sure. When? Tomorrow? 3 p.m. at Brewer's? Works for me. Wednesday afternoon." I walked into Brewer's Coffee and spotted Rosalie immediately. She was sitting in the corner booth, looking the same as always, warm, approachable, genuinely kind. She stood when I approached. We hugged briefly. "Thanks for meeting me," she said as we sat down. "Of course." "What's up?" She studied me for a moment. "Tyler told me what happened. With Melissa. The pregnancy. Everything." I nodded slowly. "Yeah. Isaac, I'm so sorry. I can't imagine what you're going through. It's been hell," I admitted. "But I'm handling it. Tyler's worried about you." That made me smile. "Kid's too perceptive for his own good." "He's your son." "Of course he is." She paused. "Look, I know we didn't work out. But we were never bad people to each other. You didn't deserve what she did to you." Something in my chest loosened. No one deserves it. "How are you holding up?" "Really?" I considered the question. Really considered it. "Honestly? Better than I expected. I'm angry, yeah, but I'm channeling it. Making sure justice happens. After that," I shrugged, "I'll figure out what's next." "You'll land on your feet," Rosalie said with absolute certainty. "You always do." We talked for another hour. About Tyler, about work, about nothing important. Just two people who'd once loved each other, now sitting as friends. And it meant more than I'd expected, because it reminded me that not every relationship had to end in betrayal. At work, something strange was happening. My performance had improved. Throwing myself into projects kept my mind focused, kept the anger channeled into something productive. Code reviews, system architecture, team leadership, everything got my full attention because it wasn't about Melissa. Thursday afternoon, my boss Luna called me into her office. Luna Clarkson was sharp, mid-50s, no nonsense, commanded respect through pure competence. "Sit," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. I sat. "I don't know what's going on in your personal life," Luna said carefully, "but your output has been exceptional lately." "Going through a divorce," I said simply. "Work is a good distraction." "Ah," she nodded knowingly. "Well, when you're ready, I'd like to discuss a promotion. Senior architect position opened up. You're the top candidate." I blinked. "I'd be interested." "Good. We'll talk after things settle down for you." She smiled. "Just wanted you to know it's coming." Walking back to my desk, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. My life was bigger than Melissa's betrayal. I had my career, my son, my future. She'd tried to destroy me, and instead, I was thriving. 6 weeks after the dinner party, Brody called me on a Friday afternoon. "Jed just reached out," he said. "They're surrendering." "What?" "Melissa will sign whatever we want. She just wants this over." I sat down at my desk. "She's accepting everything? All our terms?" "Every single one. No house, no retirement accounts, no stocks, personal belongings, her car, whatever was in her personal account before the marriage. That's it." "And spousal support?" "She's waiving it." I closed my eyes. "When?" "We'll finalize paperwork over the next 2 weeks. Court hearing early December. 2 months from filing to finalized." "That's almost unheard of, Isaac." "Because the case was airtight." "Because you documented everything perfectly," Brody corrected. This was the cleanest divorce I've ever handled. After we hung up, I just sat there, staring at my computer screen. Friday evening, I stood in my home office looking at the settlement documents Brody had emailed over. Melissa Morrison would receive personal belongings, 2014 Honda Civic, $8,000 from personal checking account. Isaac Morrison would retain primary residence, all retirement accounts, all stock portfolios, all savings accounts, all jointly acquired assets. Complete capitulation. The war was essentially over. I'd won. Early December, cold Tuesday morning, Judge Frankie Moore's courtroom. I sat beside Brody at the plaintiff's table, Melissa and Jed across the aisle. Melissa looked small, diminished, her hands twisted in her lap, and she wouldn't look at me. Good. Judge Moore entered. We all stood. She was a woman in her 60s with 30 years on the bench. No nonsense. Direct. The kind of judge who'd seen every lie, every manipulation, every scheme people tried in family court. She sat. We sat. "We're here for the matter of Morrison versus Morrison," Judge Moore said, flipping through the file. "I've reviewed all the evidence submitted by both parties." She looked up, straight at Melissa. "Mrs. Morrison, I've seen a lot of cases in my career. A lot of betrayals, a lot of deception, a lot of people doing terrible things to the people who loved them." She paused. "This is one of the most calculated I've encountered." Melissa's face went pale. "You attempted to commit paternity fraud against your husband," Judge Moore continued, her voice hard. "You conducted an affair, became pregnant with another man's child, and planned to pass that child off as your husband's. You planned to exploit him financially, divorce him, take half his assets, and collect child support for a child that wasn't his. You showed no remorse until you faced consequences." Jed shifted uncomfortably. He'd tried to argue for leniency in the pre-hearing briefs, tried to paint Melissa as confused, emotional, desperate for a baby. Judge Moore wasn't buying it. "The settlement before me is more than fair," she said. "In fact, it's generous. Mr. Morrison could have pursued criminal charges. He chose not to. That's mercy you don't deserve." Melissa was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. Judge Moore looked at the settlement terms. "Mrs. Morrison will receive her personal belongings, her 2014 Honda Civic, and the $8,000 in her personal checking account as it existed before the marriage. Everything else, the primary residence, all retirement accounts, all stock portfolios, all savings, remains with Mr. Morrison. Mrs. Morrison waives all claims to spousal support permanently." She looked up. "Do you understand these terms, Mrs. Morrison?" "Yes," Melissa whispered. "And you agree to them voluntarily?" "Yes." "Sign here." Melissa's hands shook so badly she could barely hold the pen. But she signed. 3 documents, each one ending what we'd had. Judge Moore turned to me. "Mr. Morrison, you agree not to pursue criminal fraud charges, though the civil suit will proceed separately?" "Correct, Your Honor." "And the alienation of affection case against Mr. Victor Romero has settled independently?" "Yes. Mr. Romero agreed to pay $75,000 over 3 years." "Very well." Judge Moore signed the final decree. "The marriage between Isaac Morrison and Melissa Morrison is hereby dissolved. This court is adjourned." The gavel came down. 2 months, from filing to finalized. It was over. Brody and I walked out of the courthouse into the cold December air, my breath fogged in front of me. "That was about as clean as it gets," Brody said, shaking my hand. "Complete victory. Congratulations. Thanks for everything. You documented it perfectly. Made my job easy." He grinned. "She'll think twice before pulling something like that again. If anyone's stupid enough to trust her." We said our goodbyes. Brody headed to his car. I stood there for a moment, feeling the cold air on my face. The weight I'd been carrying for months, since that moment in the garage when Melissa announced her pregnancy, lifted from my shoulders. It was done. She'd tried to destroy me, tried to trap me, tried to steal my future and my money and my peace of mind, and she'd lost everything instead. I walked to my car in the courthouse parking lot, got in, sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, took a deep breath. Then another. Relief washed over me, clean and pure and final. Justice had been served, completely, thoroughly, deservedly. The marriage was over, and I was free. Spring arrived 6 months after the divorce, and my life looked nothing like it had a year ago. The promotion came through in March. Senior architect, 20% raise, leadership over a team of 12 engineers working on our company's flagship product redesign. Luna had been right. I'd landed on my feet. Better than landed. I was thriving. Saturday morning, I was in the driveway shooting hoops with Tyler. He'd grown 2 inches since last summer, all arms and legs now at 14. Still couldn't beat me one-on-one, but he was getting close. "Dad," he said, catching the ball after I'd sunk a three-pointer, "I've been thinking about something." "Yeah? What's that?" "I'm proud of you." He looked at me, serious in that way teenagers get when they're trying to express something important. A lot of dads would have just gotten sad or whatever. You know, after what happened with Melissa. But you fought back. I felt something tighten in my chest. Good tight. "Someone taught me to stand up for what's right," I said, ruffling his hair. "Must have been a pretty cool person." "The coolest," he agreed, grinning. We played for another hour. Just me and my son, spring sunshine warming the asphalt. Everything exactly as it should be. The aftermath for Melissa and her accomplices? That was a different story. Melissa had moved in with Victor right after the divorce, lasted exactly 2 weeks, until Victor realized she wasn't getting any money from the settlement. No house, no retirement accounts, no child support gravy train. He dumped her immediately. She ended up at her mother's place, unemployed, pregnant, no prospects, reputation completely destroyed in our social circle. The baby was born in May, a boy. DNA testing confirmed what everyone already knew. Victor was the father. Victor refused to take responsibility. Wouldn't even visit the kid. Melissa filed for child support. Victor's working some minimum wage retail job now, living with roommates after losing his apartment. The monthly payments she gets? Barely enough to cover diapers. Clara and Nick's divorce finalized around the same time as mine. Nick took everything. Their house, his business, their savings. Clara moved 3 states away to start fresh, running away from consequences more like. Last I heard through the grapevine, she's living in a studio apartment, working a job she hates, completely isolated. Turns out, when you help destroy someone else's marriage, people don't trust you with their own relationships. Melissa tried reaching out once after the baby was born. Left a voicemail I almost deleted without listening. Almost. "Isaac, I know you hate me. I know I destroyed everything. But I want you to know, I'm sorry. I was selfish and stupid, and I threw away the best thing in my life. I hope someday you can forgive me." I deleted it. Forgiveness wasn't on the table. Justice had been served. That was enough. I met Elmer in June, coffee shop on a Saturday afternoon. She was reading a book on software architecture, Mitchell's framework approach, and I couldn't help commenting. "That's a good one," I said, though his implementation examples are pretty dated. She looked up, amused. "You know this book?" "Senior Software Architect. Kind of required reading." We talked for 2 hours. Elmer was 32, transitioning into tech from project management. Wickedly smart, funny without trying. She'd been through her own divorce 2 years back. Amicable, no drama, just 2 people who wanted different things. "No betrayal?" I asked on our 3rd date. "No betrayal. Just grew apart." She paused. "Why? Is that unusual in your experience?" I told her about Melissa. Everything. She listened without judgment. "The way you handled it," Elmer said finally. "The way you protected yourself. That takes real strength. You didn't play victim. You fought back. Or I was just stubborn. Sometimes they're the same thing." I introduced her to Tyler in August. They bonded immediately over terrible sci-fi movies, the kind with rubber alien masks and nonsensical plots. "She's actually cool, Dad," Tyler told me after she left one night. "Not trying to impress me cool, just cool." "I like her too," I admitted. By fall, Elmer and I were building something real, something honest. Nothing like what Melissa had given me. October arrived, 1 year since Melissa stood in my garage with those pregnancy tests. I was different now, harder in some ways, but clearer about what I deserved and what I wouldn't tolerate. Brody called with updates I didn't really need. Victor defaulted on the settlement payments. We can garnish his wages, but honestly, he's judgment-proof. Minimum wage, no assets. "Let it go," I said. "He's already living the consequences." Melissa tried to modify the divorce settlement, claimed she needs financial support. What did the judge say? Denied. Reminded her she waived support after committing fraud. I hung up and looked around my house. My career was thriving. Tyler was happy. Elmer was coming over for dinner in an hour. Melissa was living with her mother, working part-time retail, struggling with a baby Victor barely acknowledged. Clara was isolated in another state, running from her past. Victor was broke and alone, and I was whole. Justice wasn't just about their downfall. It was about my rise. I'd been wronged, I'd fought back, and I'd won, not just in court, not just financially. I'd won my life back. That evening after Elmer left, I sat on my back porch. Quiet night, stars coming out. 1 year ago, Melissa had tried to destroy me. Now she was living the consequences while I was living well. That was the best revenge of all. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.